Everybody loves a good mega project. That's probably why I have an entire channel dedicated to them. With countries often competing to build the biggest and best monuments to overcompensation in the shortest amount of time possible, naturally some of them are destined to fail, and the bigger the project, the more disastrous that failure. Failed mega projects often leave behind large empty patches of land where something great was supposed to be. Or maybe it's just a half-completed building, or the broken remnants of a collapsed and unfulfilled promise to the people. These happen all over the world, so today we'll be traveling to North Korea to take a tour of some of their most iconic failed mega projects. Not really, they'd probably kill us, but, metaphorically. Like so many other great things, the idea for the Ryogyong Hotel in Pyongyang, North Korea was born from the Cold War. In 1986, the South Korean company Sangyong Group completed the Westin Stanford Hotel in Singapore. At 226 meters tall, it was the tallest hotel in the world when it opened. Not wanting to be outdone by their southern neighbors, North Korea immediately made plans for the Ryogyong Hotel to be built. The new hotel was going to be 330 meters tall, that's over 1,000 feet. In total, it would have 105 floors, earning it the nickname the 105 building. It was intended to be a mixed-use building, with only part of it being a hotel. It was hoped that the new building could attract investors from the West, and the government promised to have relaxed oversight of the businesses contained within the building to allow, quote, foreign investors to operate casinos, nightclubs, and Japanese lounges with minimal regulation, whatever those might be. After the designs for the opulent pyramid-shaped building were completed in 1987, construction immediately got underway. President Kim Il-sung, North Korea's first and only leader at that point, had just turned 75, and the goal was to have the grand opening of the Ryogyong Hotel on his 80th birthday in 1992. The nation was going to celebrate their leader by presenting him not only with the world's largest hotel, but also its 7th tallest building. It took barely over a year to build the Empire State Building, so giving themselves 5 whole years to complete the project seemed entirely reasonable. Of course, that didn't happen. By 1992, the building had reached its full height of 330 meters, but it was nowhere near complete. There were no fixtures, there were no windows. It was just a massive concrete shell where a really cool hotel was supposed to be. By that point, it was estimated that the project had already cost $750 million, and it was not even close to done. Worse still, the country was falling into an economic crisis thanks to the fall of the Soviet Union, and so construction on the hotel had to be halted. They probably hoped things would quickly turn around so that construction could resume, but the economy only continued to get worse, leading to the North Korean famine of 94 to 98, also known as the March of Suffering. When the project had been first announced, it was a huge deal. The hotel was going to attract large sums of money from the West, and its presence on the Pyongyang skyline would be a shining beacon of hope and pride for the people of North Korea. The government was so excited for the project that early on in the building's construction, they released postage stamps featuring artist mock-ups of what the completed building would look like. But when construction halted in 1992, the government had to separate themselves from the failed megaproject. The entire nation was plunging into economic disaster and famine, and the giant concrete shell was a constant reminder to the citizens of their government's failed ambition and squandered resources. The only thing North Korea could do at that point was simply pretend that the building just didn't exist. It was removed from all maps of Pyongyang, and all official photographs of the Pyongyang skyline were edited to have the hotel removed. In the late 1990s, after the March of Suffering had ended, the European Chamber of Commerce in Korea decided to give the incomplete hotel a quick look to see how it was doing. Their conclusion was rather scathing, as they deemed the hotel to be beyond repair. That wasn't even necessarily from damage to the structure either, as it had still only been a few years since the concrete structure was completed. The issue was with the initial construction itself, as the ECCK found that they had used shoddy concrete and built crooked, misaligned elevator shafts. The implication was that the building couldn't be saved, and it would have to be built from scratch if it was going to be used. In some small amount of fairness to North Korea's initial construction, it's worth noting that while they are regarded as a non-political and non-governmental organization, the ECCK was founded in South Korea. But that doesn't mean their evaluation was incorrect. As the years went on, international media reported on the hotel with increasing disdain. Between the years of halted construction, the numerous problems that were rumored to exist with the parts that had been constructed, and the silence from the North Korean government on the future of the site, well, it led media sources to refer to it as the worst building in the world, the Phantom Hotel, and most famously, the Hotel of Doom. But in 2008, after 16 years of inactivity, the construction of the hotel finally resumed. and this time it was the Egyptian construction company Wonsan-Kalma Group that took the helm of the project. They had just secured $400 million from the North Korean government to build and support the nation's new cell phone infrastructure, a fact that undoubtedly had absolutely nothing to do with them also securing a contract for the hotel. This time, the plan was to have the building completed by 2012, just in time to celebrate the 100th birthday of Kim Il-sung, although by that point he'd been dead for 18 years, but he still was the single most important figure in North Korean history, and they wanted to be able to finally honor him even though he's dead. The COO of the Wonsan-Kalma Group stated in 2009 that there hadn't been any difficulties in fixing all of the alleged problems with the initial construction, and the hotel would be complete in time for a 2012 opening, complete with a revolving restaurant at the top of the building. At first, it looked like this might actually happen, as the building's exterior work was finished in 2011. Now that it was no longer an unsightly slab of carved-out concrete, the building actually looked really quite nice, at least from the outside it did. Interior photos released in September of 2012 told a bit of a different story. The 2012 opening had already been delayed until March of 2013 and scaled back to a partial opening. That seemed reasonable based on how nice the building looked from the outside, but the interior, well, it was completely barren. There was no wiring, there was no plumbing, there really didn't seem to be much of anything inside the building except 105 floors of bare concrete. Once again, the hotel had failed to open. It's been 36 years since construction began, and it's unclear if it's ever going to be completed. Starting in late 2016, there were signs of renewed activity at the construction site, and some access roads to the hotel were even built. In 2018, an LCD screen was installed at the top of the hotel that proudly shows the North Korean flag. In 2019, another screen was added that covered one of the entire sides of the building. But since then, there haven't been any updates. Hotel of Doom is yet to open its doors, and there are no announced plans for it to do so. Currently, it stands as a 105-story monument to overambition with a giant LCD screen that plays short propaganda films and cartoons for the public, like some sort of horrible drive-in theater. One of Kim Jong-un's major goals is to attract money from foreign nationals to help support North Korea. Unfortunately, his insistence on trying to develop nuclear weapons does make it a bit difficult to try and establish trade agreements with the rest of the world. This means that North Korea's biggest hope for attracting foreign money is tourism. There have been several plans for major tourist destinations, but the Wonsan-Kalma coastal tourist zone was meant to be the premier tourist destination for the country, showing off their beautiful beaches. The plan was first announced in 2016, and in his 2018 New Year's address, Kim said that he wanted the resort completed in the shortest amount of time possible. He personally visited the location several times to make sure that things were remaining on track, and it was initially set to open on April the 15th, 2019. The beach resort was designed to be absolutely massive. It featured an airport, or outdoor water park, an arena shaped like a turtle, as well as hotels, a restaurant complex, a tram station, and countless other buildings. The whole thing was a massive, ambitious endeavor, and in order to have it completed by 2019, crews were working around the clock to get everything done. Unsurprisingly, there were a number of setbacks that resulted in this date being delayed. Surprise, surprise.
I am shocked.
There was an incredibly high level of worker turnover, resulting in the construction needing to rely on unskilled laborers. It should hopefully go without saying that unskilled labor is not ideal when it comes to large-scale construction projects, and the entire development started going sideways from the very start. Eventually, the completion date was pushed back from April 2019 until April 2020 due to a lack of construction supplies amongst all the other setbacks and delays. We'll never know whether or not that target date was overly ambitious, as construction was halted and the site was virtually abandoned for 3 years thanks to the COVID pandemic. At least, it was abandoned by the government and the construction workers, because with them out of the way, the incomplete buildings became the new homes of North Korea's population of homeless beggars known as Kotjebi. The concrete and metal frames of unfinished buildings may not have been attractive to tourists, but they still provided a much-needed safe haven to the homeless during the cold winter months. But since the building exteriors weren't even complete, you can rest assured that the interior details such as plumbing hadn't been installed yet either. The result is that the homeless people used the entire buildings as restrooms, covering what was meant to be a beautiful beachside resort in human waste. While there was one military deployment assigned to maintain the facilities during COVID, the resort has over 150 buildings, making that an unwieldy task for such a small group. Though the Wonsan-Kalma stopped being a massive priority for 3 years due to the pandemic, in January of 2023, an order was sent to those that had been tasked with maintaining the property to determine what supplies, equipment, and how much manpower they would need to complete the job. It's reported that the exterior work is 90% complete, although aerial images of the beach show that that's likely a bit of an overestimate. There are numerous buildings that are barely started, let alone complete, with countless others looking more like concrete outlines of a building rather than a building themselves. The tram station has no roof, and the outdoor water park has, well, literally nothing. There is the clear footprint of where the water park will be located and where the buildings and rides it's meant to contain will be, but it remains a completely empty lot. Even if the exterior work is 90% done, there's still the matter of the interior work. Before any actual work can begin, the buildings need to be cleaned of human waste and soot from the fires that the homeless people use to keep themselves warm during winter. While that's a much smaller task than all of the other interior work, it's just one more hurdle standing between North Korea and their international tourism paradise. And as we saw, of course, with the Hotel of Doom, the interior work can be an even bigger roadblock to completion. However, it seems as if Kim is ready to make this beach resort a priority again. An order was issued earlier this year to resume construction on the tourist zone, and it probably won't be long before another expected grand opening date is announced. Whether or not construction will actually be completed on time is a different matter, though North Korea doesn't seem to have a strong track record in that department, so we're gonna say, probably not. And an even bigger question is whether or not the resort will even be successful in attracting tourists. Some estimates put North Korea's pre-COVID rate of tourism at a little over 100,000 tourists each year, most of them from China, with a few from the West. Plan was for this beach resort to increase that number to 1 million, but it's impossible to guess whether or not that will happen until the Megaproject is actually completed, assuming that that ever happens. And oh yeah, North Korea would also need to actually allow tourists into their country again, seeing they closed their borders at the beginning of the pandemic and have yet to reopen them.